Welcome to RotoWire. Today's show will include a preview of all 16 games on the Week 16 NFL slate. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by DraftKings, Pick 6, and LIV Golf. I'm Jim Coventry, joined by Mario Puig, and obviously we're with RotoWire. Mario, Thursday Night Football, we have got the Broncos and the Chargers. Broncos are 9-5, Chargers are 8-6. Chargers won in Denver 23-16, but J.K. Dobbins played 25 carries, 96 and a touchdown. On Charger side of the ball, again, they literally have no strong running game right now. Denver can send resources to deal with Justin Herbert. Patrick Surtain appears fine. He could follow Ladd McConkey. The pass rush could be a problem. I'm worried for the Chargers offense. What do you think on the Charger side of the ball?
Well, I don't remember Surtain going into the slot a whole lot. Jaquan McMillan in the slot is good anyway. So, and Riley Moss might be back for this one. So the Denver defense had a moment of weakness that may be ending here, which is, of course, bad news for a Chargers team that sort of needs answers that they cannot create or, acquire at this point in the year. So kind of a tough spot. The only way the Chargers can win, I think, is making it a low-scoring game, same as most weeks, I suppose. But we also saw last week maybe like the defense, which had overachieved so much, had gotten so much out of those rookie corners especially. Maybe we're seeing the limits of that, the limits of how much you can overachieve with a defense that's kind of lacking talent, healthy talent anyway.
Denver side of the ball, Bo Nix is probably not under significant pressure. Bosa and Mack have not really been dialing up to a high level. I don't think the Chargers sell out the blitz. The run defense is great, and the Broncos simply don't run the ball well. So other than Cortland Sutton getting it done, what do you see on the Denver side?
Well, I was hopeful for Devon Vele for a while there, but then last week they rolled back his snaps to like 20 and played Troy Franklin more. I don't know what Sean Payton thinks he's doing, but I don't want to mess with anybody other than Sutton if possible.
I've got the Broncos winning the 17-16. Do you have any thoughts on the game, like who wins?
I guess I'd have to lean Denver. They just kind of at the very least, they're hurting less than the Chargers. Yes. And again, I think the Chargers kind of have worn out their tricks in the year. Like they had a lot. They got their team to overachieve way beyond what it had any reason to be producing like. And you can only do that for so long. You can't do it forever.
Exactly. Next game, 9-5 Texans at the 13-1 Chiefs. Looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to play. High ankle sprain said is not as bad as the one he had in the playoffs a couple of years back. So he looks like he's good to go. Kansas City's probably going to load up the tight ends. They're probably going to run the ball. Mahomes probably throws less than usual. A very tough tight end matchup. We know the Texans could bring a lot of heat. I think DeAndre Hopkins could get some possession catches, but I don't see the Chiefs doing anything more than grinding down this game and keeping it low scoring. Thoughts on the Kansas City side, Mario?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs could do some damage to the Houston pass defense if they were spreading it out. But like you said, the Chiefs have been running a 2 tight end base for, 3 months now. And they don't really have any reason to change that here. So a guy like Noah Gray, on the one hand, it's sort of improbable of the season that he's had and how he's produced lately. But I don't know what conditions would change that would make him stop exactly. And other than Hopkins, even like Worthy, I don't have any faith in really, but he's at least playing a lot of snaps. But Hopkins and I guess Kelsey otherwise is all that I'd really be looking for in the pass catchers. I'd like to say Pacheco gets going, but this is a tough matchup on the ground, and they still haven't really fully unleashed him.
Other side of the ball, the Texans offense has been very limited. The offensive line's been a problem. CJ Stroud's under a lot of pressure when teams can pressure. The running game not getting pushed in the offensive line. So Joe Mixon's, when it happens for him, he has to do it kind of on his own. Kansas City, though, not as good against the run as they were. I imagine Steve Spagnuolo tries to do something to limit the big plays from Nico Collins. Thoughts on the Houston side of the ball?
Yeah, Houston's problem is their line, and especially the interior line, is one of the worst in the league, and Chris Jones is not really a player you can handle if your offensive line is in that kind of state. So I don't really expect the Texans to be able to handle that. CJ Stroud has been under a lot of pressure in basically every single game, including some games that do not have any Chris Jones type presences in them. So Love Nico Collins just because he's great. Dell justifiable start, I suppose, but I'm not really getting my hopes up for the second read in the Texans offense as long as this interior pass blocking is as bad as it is. Mixon, I guess, should have a pretty good game, maybe even a solid one.
Yes, I think the Chiefs eke this one out. Who do you think wins?
Chiefs, I don't know, 24-17, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Kind of eke it out. They should cover the spread here. All right, let's go to our next game. We've got the 10-4 Steelers at the 9-5 Ravens. The Ravens would tie them with a win, but the tiebreaker goes to the Steelers right now. But that said, the Steelers won that Week 11 game, 18-16. Lamar Jackson less than 50% passing, ran 4 times for 46 yards. Baltimore passed it 33 times, only 19 runs. Isaiah Likely, the only one over 39 receiving yards. What are you expecting from the Baltimore offense in this one?
I think they'll be better than the last time, but winning by 6.5, I don't know about that good. I could be wrong. Lamar Jackson has been pretty much infallible this year outside of that Steelers game. And even that Steelers game, he did better in than he had in previous Steelers matchups. So the Ravens know what they want to do. They got more or less the personnel to do what they want to do. The only question I think is whether the Baltimore defense is any different than it was the last time. And I think it is probably a little better. It always made sense to me that their pass defense would improve over the course of the year. And with the Steelers perhaps not having Pickens again, I think they might struggle to, move the ball at all, really.
And that is the big point. Pittsburgh side of the ball, Pickens went 8 for 89 on 12 targets. He was the only pass catcher in that first meeting, over 40 yards. Russell Wilson threw for 205 and an interception. Now, the running game, it wasn't very effective, but it grounded out. It won the game for them. Warren and Harris, 27 carries for 105 yards. So again, less than 4 yards per carry, but they moved the chains. They caught 8 passes for 57 yards. So it was a running back centric game. If there's no George Pickens, Baltimore could definitely lock down on that. Thoughts?
Yeah, and you mentioned on the radio going into this last weekend about how Jaylen Warren can get targets when the receivers can't, or if Pickens is unavailable, as it were. So there might be a lot of checkdowns for a guy like him in this game.
I think if Pickens plays, it's a very close game in the Steelers cover. I have 23-19 Ravens. If there's no Pickens, I think the Ravens win by 10. Anything on that?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the Steelers generally keep the game low scoring, but it maybe will be one of those games where it feels in reach, but maybe isn't, just because we know the Steelers can't actually strike from any sort of range.
So we'll go to our next game. We'll go to the 2-12 Giants at the 7-7 Falcons. I'll start with the Giants side. It's a middling to tougher matchup on the ground. Tyrone Tracy might not be able to get a whole lot going here, but he is getting some fun. He lost another goal line touch of Singletary last week. Atlanta's probably going to send some extra blitz pressure. We don't know who the quarterback is for the Giants. Toss it up in a hat and see where it falls. It's too early in the week. Aside from Malik Neighbors having a high floor, what are your thoughts on the Giants offense against the Falcons?
I think Tracy is a guy you can justify, taking the chance on. We know there are certain risks given the state of the Giants offense, but we've also seen that Tracy can kind of catch a handful of passes in a hurry, or he can make a big play here or there. So it's not truly hopeless, even if it's not looking as good as it might have, a month or two ago. Other than Neighbors and Tracy, though, I don't think anything's really going on there.
So the other side of the ball, it's going to be Michael Penix time. So it finally happened. Look, Mario, Kirk Cousins can't run play action. He doesn't have the athleticism to do that. He certainly can't roll out. We don't know what Penix definitely is right now, but we know he can do play action. He can roll out. It'll help the running game. It'll probably help quick passing. I think in this game, they could probably run a lot, have Penix throw when he needs to, but they should be able to control this game to a degree. What do you expect from the Falcons offense with Penix under center?
Yeah, if people are considering starting Penix this week, even in the fantasy playoffs, I couldn't really tell them not to. The matchup is really favorable. The on-hand support for Penix is very good. Even though Cousins struggled this year, there was never any good reason for him to have struggled. So the Giants being as bad as they are, Penix never ran in college, but he can run. I don't know if that might show up differently in the NFL. I guess it probably won't. He's always been a pocket-inclined passer, but he should have. I mean, even like Ray McLeod might get open against this defense, especially if the Giants keep missing guys at corner.
All three were out last week, as you mentioned in the Sirius show last week. That was crazy to be down that many players. No Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, really bad spot. Again, Bijan could probably, and Algier, they probably could run the ball down their throats if that's the way they choose to go. I think the Falcons win this one. I'm going to call it 2013, but I think it could get worse than that. Anything on that?
Yeah, I think the Falcons can get over 24 or so, but the Giants staying low, I think, is all but certain.
Our next game is the Arizona Cardinals, 7-7 at the 3-11 Panthers. Like we said last week on the Sirius show, Mario, James Conner last week was set up for a big game against New England. He came through against Carolina. It's another great situation. Carolina not good against the run. They really can't commit extra bodies. Kyler Murray can get them on the outside if he gets to running. He does have targets. McBride should have a great game. I think Conner dominates. Thoughts on the Arizona offense in this one?
Yeah, I assume Trey McBride must have already set or must be closing in on the record for most receptions in a season without a touchdown. Not to say that changes here, but in PPR, I guess it hasn't mattered. He's just catching 9 passes a game. No one's going to care if there's no touchdowns. But yeah, the Kyler part is a little tougher because for Kyler to have a decent game passing, there needs to be someone other than McBride who steps up. Harrison could be able to do that. Wilson could do that, but the Cardinals have shown a tendency to kind of not throw the ball, even if they kind of need to.
Right.
They've shown a tendency not to. So run game should be going crazy, but I can't tell what will ever be a reasonable expectation for Harrison this year. It seems like they're kind of just using him as a decoy or something.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a lateral point. Kyler Murray's a tough start, so he might not attempt 20 passes here. Now, could he throw 3 touchdowns on those 20 passes? Possible. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's a very risky spot because they may not have to throw a lot here. Panthers side of the ball, look, the Cardinals don't have a lot of talent, but they're coached very well. They send simulated pressure. They confuse quarterbacks, make them speed up a little bit. They're pretty good against the run. This isn't a great spot, but it's certainly not insurmountable. What are your thoughts on the Panthers offense?
Chuba Hubbard's a little tough in that we saw last week the worst case scenario can look like if the Panthers, if the game gets away from them. Hubbard has run really well against teams like the Eagles, who should have been a really tough matchup, and then against the Cowboys, who had one of the worst run defenses in the league. Couldn't quite capitalize. So particularly in the event that the Cardinals offense is rolling, and if the Cardinals are rolling to their liking, they're doing it largely on the ground, running out the clock quickly. So I'd like to believe Hubbard will get a chance. I almost always believe if Chuba Hubbard gets a fair chance, he will more or less capitalize. But I don't know. He needs certain things to fall the right way to get those opportunities.
It sounds like you almost pulled a Jim Coventry there. You called him a Chubbard. You didn't quite say it. I call him that. I screwed it up every week, Mario. I'm like, Chubbard. I'm like, oh, man, I did it again. But it's perfect. It's a cool name. I think that'd be a cool nickname.
I've said both names so many times. It was just gonna, my headcanon space is collapsing, and they're becoming the same person.
Well, that's better than me rubbing off on you. I think we'll take that one. I like that one better. So I think the Cardinals win this one. I think they cover. It's only like a 4-point line. I think they win by at least 6.
They should be comfortable.
Yeah, they're so much better. They're not an elite team, of course, but they're way better than most people think. This is a very good NFL team, just not Super Bowl caliber. We're going to take a quick break to tell you about DraftKings Pick 6.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code, ROTOPICK. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, we're back to the Week 16 NFL game preview, and next week have the 12-2 Lions at the 4-10 Bears. These teams played on Thanksgiving. The Lions blew them out in the first half. The second half, garbage time came. The Bears almost won. Botched clock management, got their coach fired. Bears could have won that game, but up till that point in the beginning, it was all Detroit. David Montgomery done for the season. The defense has been lost two more key players, Aleem McNeil and Jamel Dean. I think Detroit realizes now they're going to have to score 37 a game to win in the playoffs. I think they start that now. I think they just put their foot to the floor and they just get in the mode of scoring points. How do you see the offense against the Bears?
I think while the Lions have an increased urgency to score, Aleem McNeil is a big loss, actually. I know he's not like a sack leader type, but him and DJ Reader are pillars in the run defense, not unlike, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart or something, and they just kind of make the linebackers look good no matter who they are. So that's a big loss, and I don't know, what was it? It's Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis is the one.
It's Carlton Davis. I screwed that up.
So that's Carlton Davis was an upgrade over what they had last year, but he still is probably average at best as a starter, or at least he's not what we call truly a standout. And we know the Lions struggle to defend the pass against plus, passing offenses. Not that the Bears are that, but in the event that, if these corners have to cover more Odunze Allen 35 times, it's just kind of easy against receivers like those to have something go wrong, even though the Bears are not doing anything particularly well. So there's a chance the Bears could stay in it. I think what we can take for a given is that the Lions will score and win this game probably somewhat comfortably. But the Bears part, like pretty much every week since I lost the faith in week 6 or whatever it was, I just can't really I can't convince myself that they'll do anything in particular ever, even though in theory there should be volume potentially there for Williams and the Bears pass catchers.
Yeah, I think you cover the Bears side as well. Also, I do think that Aaron Glenn's going to send the blitz. They're going to send the blitz. They're going to double down on it, even with Carlton Davis out, because he was good at least getting physical. But you're right.
Yeah.
The Bears receivers have an advantage. They will make some plays. I don't think they'll be able to hang with the Lions on the board. But for fantasy, your Bears receivers, play them as you normally would. All right. I predict the Lions win this one 33-16. Sounds like you have them with a comfortable win as well, Mario, correct?
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
All right. We will go to our next game, the 3-11 Browns at the 6-8 Bengals. So in this game, it's a divisional matchup, obviously, between hated rivals. The Browns, though, here's the deal. Dorian Thompson-Robson's at quarterback, and he has like an average depth of pass in his career, about 4 yards. His completion percentage is under 50. Basically, Jerry Jeudy to me went from being like a borderline wide receiver 1 to a wide receiver 40. Cedric Tillman outside the top 50. Elijah Moore outside the top 70. David Njoku, if he plays, outside the top 15. I don't know how they score points. And Jerome Ford, he's the lead now. He might catch some screens. I don't know how they score 10 points, Mario.
Yeah, I understand the frustration with Jameis Winston. Obviously, he throws too many interceptions, but at least he can move the ball. Thompson Robinson can't. So I think it's the Browns kind of understandingly, flinching, kind of losing their minds under all this flurry of kind of bad luck and just disappointment. So I'm not expecting them to be particularly locked in. I think Stefanski's a good coach, but I just can't truly believe that the Browns players have their heart in it at this point. And the Bengals on the other side, far from a polished product, and I expect in the first half especially the Browns will be able to keep the division rival factor, keeping them focused, some amount of motor, but I'm not convinced in the second half, especially if the Bengals get so much as like a 1 touchdown lead. I could imagine the Browns players kind of feeling like, this sucks. Let's fast forward to Christmas.
Now, the Browns blow coverages downfield every week. I believe Martin Emerson got hurt last week. Not sure if he's going to be on the field this week. That's a problem. The fact that they have the great pass rush, Joe Burrow deals with it all the time, whether it's Pittsburgh or other teams, and the advantage their receivers have. And even Chase Brown, it's a bad run game matchup, but with the space he gets because of the receivers that creates for him and the screen game, start your Bengals as you normally would. I think the Bengals win this one literally going away. I have them 30-10. Anything on that?
I'll also co-sign that one. Like you said, I like Chase Brown plenty here too.
All right, we will come back with more Week 16 game breakdowns after we take a short break. All right, next we're going to go to the 3-11 Titans at the 6-8 Colts. In this game, Mario, the Titans, so basically Mason Rudolph's back at a quarterback, and honestly, as bad as Will Levis is, Mason Rudolph is probably better for the offense. Tony Pollard, despite a bad offensive line, has been getting it down the ground. But Indy's a fairly solid defense. They don't do anything great. They do everything decently. So I don't know there's any clear upside for players. I'm starting Pollard. I'm iffy on Calvin Ridley. What are your thoughts on Tennessee with the football?
I feel like Ridley and Westbrook-Ikhine, I know they fell off this last week, 2 weeks, whatever it's been, but the conditions that made them productive, I think, are more or less back in place with Rudolph out there. Like, Levis might have been the actual quarterback on the field, but to me, Ridley and Westbrook-Ikhine produce and can be expected to produce when they get basically viable targets. And I do think Rudolph gives them more viable targets and maybe more targets in general, just because he's not going to run like Levis. He's more likely to get first downs in a third down situation than Levis. So the Colts got one good corner, they got Jalen Jones on the boundary, who's good. Kenny Moore in the slot is more like a rover, but I think Ridley and Westbrook-Ikhine are kind of tough for whichever non-Jalen Jones corner is on the boundary for the Colts. So if you got to go with one of Ridley or Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I wouldn't fret too much over it, especially the Ridley part.
Indy side of the ball, tough rushing matchup. Tennessee's been very good against the run. At least two linemen. Ryan Kelly had his 21-day practice window active. I don't know if he'll come back, but the line has been a wreck with injuries. Jonathan Taylor has done well the last weeks. I know we had the fumble for that cost him a touchdown and a touchback last week. That was a tough one, but he's played pretty well the last 2 weeks. Looks like he's coming back. Otherwise, in the passing game, you hope Josh Downs does well, but it's really hard to count on Anthony Richardson. What do you see on the Colts side of the ball?
Yeah, it's the same sad story it's been. I guess it's a little different than the Flacco chapter, but it's back to the same thing where we can't count on the Colts to get any particular number of first downs outside of Jonathan Taylor, really, because Richardson just does not have the acumen as an underneath and intermediate passer to keep the chains moving. And so, Richardson can make something like 15 great throws in a game, but realistically you have to throw something like 30 plus passes, and it's like every other one is just missing the broadside of a barn. So Downs getting back can't hurt. There's definitely skilled receivers, skilled from scrimmage players at receiver and running back, just Taylor in the running back instance, but I just can't convince myself that the Colts can see two just basic NFL standard functions on offense. Like, it seems like they can't do basic things, especially in the passing game, and that's a pretty substantial burden to factor in as like a given limitation.
Divisional game. Good luck. Guess who wins? But I am going to take the Colts winning this 19-13. Any thought on who wins this game?
Yeah, I guess someone has to win. Maybe.
Right?
19, 13, or 14. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a divisional game, and especially one like this, there's still slight playoff hopes for the Colts. Not that they probably had their heart taken out last week, but then that's kind of the end of the story for them. Let's go to the Rams, 8-6 at the 4-10 Jets. Here's the thing. You never know which team of the Rams are going to show up with. There are weeks they show up in bad situations. They come out and they go ballistic. Then there are weeks where they look great and they don't show up at all. And they're playing a bigger quagmire of a team in the Jets. Jets haven't really been showing up on defense. They gave up a boatload of points to Jacksonville last week. All that said, Cooper Kupp has a goose egg last week. 2 of the last 3 games, less than 5 fantasy points. The other 3 of the last 5 were over 20. We want to know what we're getting out of him. The rest, and maybe Matthew Stafford. What are your thoughts on the Rams side of the offense?
I'm definitely still in on Kupp. I think it's pretty much the rain and the fact that, yes, Puka Nacua has passed Cooper Kupp. That's the reason for Week 15 struggles, I think. And as long as there's no weather event here, I think it's pretty much game on for Kupp. He's still being targeted at a blistering pace. So granted, a lot of that on that 21 targets in Week 1, but we got 14, 7, 10, 11 targets in a 4-week span from week 9 to 12. And I don't really see, other than Nacua going off and the Rams running game taking up a lot of room, I don't know what could get in Kupp's way here. I think he'll be efficient on whatever target count he gets.
Jets have been really weird. They do nothing in the first half of games, and then the second half of certain weeks, they go ballistic. I think Devontae Adams may have had a goose egg going into halftime, and he ends up with 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he and Rodgers, when they're getting the second half thing going, it's better than the Green Bay days at times. So I don't know what to expect from them. If the Rams have a lead, I could see the Jets having that second half, craziness. Hard to bank on. What do you see from the Jets this week?
Yeah, the only real limitation or, threat to the production of guys like Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams is the fact that Aaron Rodgers is generally unreliable at this point and also kind of slow to start, slow to do anything really. They move at a slow pace, and that's, even in a kind of circus-like shootout or whatever with the Jaguars last week, as Rodgers still finishes with 33 pass attempts. So that was a game where a lot of other quarterbacks would throw 45 or 50. So it's tough to, as much as Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams both draw targets at a really rapid pace, either of them is liable to kind of get pinched out of a 25 pass attempt sample just because that's a small sample and it's inherently volatile. So I think you pretty much got to start Wilson and Adams if you have them, but it's not the norm for Rodgers to have like a 300-yard game at this point. Like something weird happens when that happens.
Look, I'm only picking the Rams to win by 3 because the Rams, they never do what you think they're going to do. In a game you think they can handle, that's when they tend not to show up. So I think they win, but they squeak by. How do you see it?
Yeah, I feel like Stafford is playing really great. The last 2 years better than his numbers, I think. And like I said before, I expect Kupp to show up again here and not specifically at the expense of Nacua. So if Kupp and Nacua are going, the Rams should be fine, even if Rodgers has one of his good games.
Yeah, it's a big game for the Rams as they're leading the NFC West right now. They can't afford to bonk this one. All right, let's go next to the 12-2 Eagles at the 9-5 Commanders. In the first meeting, Mario, basically Austin Eckler, I think he got 8 for 89. It was a screen pass game that was available. The Eagles gave it to him. They checked down to Zach Ertz. Well, Eckler's on injured reserve. Ertz had a concussion. They elevated a practice squad guy already. So my guess is Ertz isn't probably playing here. I don't know that Cliff Kingsbury's going to learn anything in the first matchup. I think they're overmatched. Jaden Daniels took 8 sacks last week. Philly's going to pressure him. And realistically, that game that the Eagles won 26-18, there was a late garbage time touchdown, a 2-point conversion. This game was 26-10. I see the same thing here. What do you see from the Washington side? I don't think they moved the ball, and I'm very worried for McLaurin, who had 1 catch for 10 yards in that game.
Yeah, it is. On the one hand, I think the last time these teams played, we didn't realize how good the Eagles' defense was. But since then, like there's nothing that I can think of that the Commanders could come up with to sort of adjust for the way that they lost the last game. Like I think their personnel only gives them so many possibilities, and the offense for Washington, which one of the most shocking things of the season to me, maybe the most shocking thing of the season to me, is that I think Cliff Kingsbury's done a really good job with this offense generally, but it's a very ground game dependent offense. Like if you make Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, if you make Daniels throw 40 passes in this game, bad stuff is going to happen. So I think Daniels is tough to bench in fantasy just because he can run like crazy, of course. Right. But I don't know. Also, the best case scenario for Daniels as a passer at this point is just like a game where he gets to 220 yards and 150 of them are from Terry McLaurin. So there's a lot of pitfalls for the Washington offense here, whereas the Eagles, they can have a down game as an offense and because of their defense still be somewhat comfortable.
So on the Eagles side of the ball, that offensive line is going to dominate the Washington defense. Long ago, they lost Jonathan Allen, and that was like one of the last dominoes to fall. This is not a serious challenge for this offensive line. Saquon Barkley probably gets back to running the offense, assuming his quad's okay, which I imagine he still played in that last week's game. I think there's another game where they go back to him. He steamrolls them. I don't think we see the double-digit targets to Brown and Smith, but I think we see better than the 5 and 6 targets they were seeing. I think it's in between. So I think you start them all, but I think Barkley has the game here. How do you see the Philly side shaping up?
I agree with what you said, and I am interested to see what Marshawn Lattimore can do in a game like this. This is AJ Brown matchup is why they traded for him. So I definitely favor AJ Brown in that matchup, but it's an interesting matchup. It's not often you see wide receiver corner matchups that good, or Devontae Smith versus Lattimore when it happens. I mean, both receivers are great and pretty much overqualified. It's just the Eagles at their best, at their optimal usage, run the ball heavily and don't throw the ball 30 plus times, because Jalen Hurts, he had a big game against the Steelers, but the Steelers were pinned down, knocked out, like against a defense that's still alive. I don't want Hurts throwing 30 passes.
I'm happily laying the 3.5 here. I think the Eagles win this comfortably.
Yeah.
Anything on that?
Yeah, I think they win by like a touchdown or more, probably.
Yeah. These teams are going in different directions right now. Not that the Washington Commanders are bad, but the Eagles are really an elite team. Hey, LIV Golf, it's a new season for LIV Golf Fantasy in 2025. New prizes, new ways to win, and more are coming in the new season. Get ready to play and sign up now at fantasy.livegolf.com. Mario, next we have the 12-2 Vikings against the 8-6 Seahawks. And the problem handicapping and breaking this game down this early in the week, which is Wednesday, is that we don't know who the starting quarterback for the Seahawks is going to be. If it's Sam Howell, we already saw the sacks he was taking. And if he played a full season, he would break David Carr's 78 record of sacks, because he just simply can't get rid of the ball. And that whole offense, they won't move. The Vikings are going to send pressure, and it's going to make Howell cower. They're not going to be able to run. There's a run defense that snuffs everything out. If Geno Smith plays on a bad knee, I don't know if it's going to be better, but I don't think they move it either way. What are your thoughts on the Seattle side of the football?
Yeah, I'm concerned for the Seahawks offense. I think the Vikings have shown they are serious and capable about stopping the run. And at the Seahawks, if you make them one-dimensional, it's tough on any offense if you truly make them one-dimensional. But as much as I don't want to say Grubb, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, I don't mean to say like he hasn't done good enough for a first-year guy or can't get better, but I definitely think he's at risk of getting eaten alive by a coordinator like Flores on the other side. So I think that it's a dangerous spot for both teams in a sense, because the Seahawks defense also is capable of playing quite well, and Darnold is not exactly, he's not exactly infallible despite his strong season here. So I'm worried about turnovers happening on both offenses, just a little bit more in the case of the Seahawks, which is why I'm leaning. Also, the Vikings have, despite the strength maybe that might be in the Seahawks defense, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson is kind of firepower that no defense is like truly well built to withstand.
Yeah, 100% on that. I do agree with you. Sam Darnold. I almost called Darnold and Howell Dowell. Very nice. I got a Chubba Hubbard thing going there. I got Chubbard. So anyway, Sam Darnold is going to be under duress in this game, like you said. Mike McDonald's going to scheme that up, and Darnold is going to be a little uncomfortable. And like you said, he's going to make mistakes, but with those weapons, we're kind of good on that. It is a little tougher of a matchup for Aaron Jones. Expect a solid floor, but he might not get that ceiling game you want here. I look at it this way. If Geno Smith plays, I still think it's a lower scoring game. I think it's like 20-16, but I think if Sam Howell plays, we're looking like 27-10. What do you think?
Yeah, if Howell plays, we might get like 10 sacks or something. Jonathan Greener is just going to become the league sack leader in one game or something.
For those who rostered the Vikings defense, been holding them all season, the Sam Howell start would be exactly what the doctor ordered for your fantasy team in the semifinals. We will go next to the 3-11 Patriots against the 11-3 Bills. Bills are laying 14 points in this game. You know what, Mario? First thing I'll say is this. The Bills legitimately hate the Patriots. Division teams hate each other, but this is the team where Tom Brady and Bill Belichick rubbed their faces in it for years. Abuse. Yes. And now that those guys are gone, I don't think the Bills see it any differently. The Bills are going to punish them as long as they can. And in terms of who to start for fantasy, obviously, Josh Allen's going to have his massive game. James Cook should be fine. I really don't know who else gets the ball here. Last week, they just chose to attack the linebackers of the Lions, and that meant Ty Johnson time. They isolated him out. We thought that was going to be Cook doing that, and it was Ty Johnson. So I don't know who's going to have the game other than Josh Allen and James Cook. That's going to be tough for fantasy. Amari Cooper had 0 targets last week after 14 the prior week. I don't think you could start him. What else do you see from the Bills offense?
He had like 20 snaps.
Right. And they've been playing him like half the snaps. Crazy.
Yeah, sorry, I think I lost my connection there for a second. I might have missed something you said, Jim, but I do think clearly the Cooper decrease in workload was some kind of game plan specific thing. Maybe it was the Ty Johnson routes specifically. It is almost as if Cooper's expected numbers went to Ty Johnson in that game. It's so peculiar. And I got to give the Bills credit, Joe Brady especially. I think Joe Brady's doing a great job in general, by the way. I think he doesn't get enough credit.
Oh yeah,
but
100%.
The way they took Ty Johnson and made him a like gunner on special teams and a sort of drawback as a runner, and then a pass catching specialist who only runs downfield route, like only one runs wheel route type things. Very weird application, but it seems to suit him. So yeah, the Bills have so many means of attacking a defense that it's kind of it would take some amount of hubris to assume you knew which way they were going to go. And I guess I assume Khalil Shakir will be in and
Yes.
useful, but
Yes.
anybody else is liable to play less than 30 snaps, it seems like.
Yeah. Now on the other side, Drake could get you some hurry up mode, garbage time points. I don't know which receivers are to benefit. If I'm on a limb, I think Kendrick Bourne could actually do a little bit of damage, but that's like a wing and a prayer. I'm also worried Ramondre Stevenson gets game scripted out. Who could you count on, and if anybody, for the Patriots?
Not really anyone. In the scenario where the Patriots are somehow competitive, I think it necessarily requires Ramondre Stevenson running the ball, but I don't really expect the Patriots to be competitive, so I can't really take that leap of faith with Ramondre, even though I think he's good and would capitalize if given the opportunity. It might be more of like an Antonio Gibson game, just because, you know, they just kind of, the Patriots just kind of get beat that badly.
Gibson is definitely sneaky here. All right, let's go to our next game. We have the 3-11 Jaguars against the 2-12 Raiders. Yes, 5 wins between them. The Jaguars had that crazy game last week against the Jets where there was like maybe 13, 16 points in the first half, and then they went off the rails in the second half. The Raiders played a very impassioned Monday night game, getting after Kirk Cousins with no Max Crosby. Short week for them. I don't know how your motivation is up for this game, but let's start with the Raiders on offense. Aiden O'Connell's going to play a quarterback, and I know 2 things. One is he gets the ball to Jacoby Myers, and 2, he even gets the ball more to Brock Bowers. Those are 2 receivers I could probably count on. Anything on the Raiders offense?
Right. I don't think O'Connell is particularly good, but there is something to be said for his punctuality, I guess. Like he can only make very easy throws, but the Raiders passing game is entirely about making easy short targets for Myers and Bowers. Ritter complicated that formula. O'Connell should make it viable again. So Myers and Bowers both are easy starts, I think. And sorry to have to ask, is there anything new on McCormick? I forgot to. I didn't see the extent of
ankle
his,
injury. We didn't know yet. Yeah, so we don't know yet. But
so I happen to think McCormick's a pretty good player, or at least might be. But I can't tell. I mean, a lot of things about the Raiders, but if his health is at all compromised, I think I would sooner pick probably Amir Abdullah. In other words, if McCormick is at all hobbled.
Yeah, because he was ruled out quickly in that Monday night game, Sincere McCormick. So I would be very nervous about him playing. And again, Amir Abdullah and even Alexander Madison played a bit in that game. So it could be a mess. I would avoid the Raiders running backs if at all possible. Other side of the ball, look, you don't need me to tell you to start Brian Thomas Jr. He is a stud. They get him the ball. So there's never an issue there. And Brenton Strange, 11 targets last week. He won't get 11 every week, but he definitely will get you 5 to 8 targets in most games. And it's a great matchup. I'm worried about Travis Etienne. He's been good as a receiver the last few weeks. The Raiders have been surprisingly good against receiving backs. But again, if you're in a desperate pinch, Etienne should get some volume. What are your thoughts on the Jacksonville offense?
Other than Thomas, ideally I'd stay away. I still think Etienne is clearly a very good player, and I think Tank Bigsby is clearly inferior to him. But because I believe the Jaguars are a team that is fundamentally mismanaged and incapable, I don't assume that they're able to see to any particular thing, let alone, assess merit correctly. So just Thomas, if at all possible. Although, like you said, Strange, at the very least, is a good kind of check down option, and God knows Mac Jones will do that.
If you're betting this game, good. I wish the best to you, because I would not want to touch this game. I am picking the Raiders to win by 3, but it could just easily be the Jaguars by 3. What do you think about the outcome?
I think Mac Jones is better than Aiden O'Connell, and Thomas rolling the way that he is. I feel like the Jaguars have no excuse for losing, but I probably shouldn't say more than that.
Yeah, like I said, I do not want to pick that game. Prefer not to, but yeah, either team could win that game by a field goal, and it would not surprise me. All right, our next game on the slate, we have the 6-8 49ers against the 6-8 Dolphins. Just what we predicted at the beginning of the season. Both of these teams under 500 as we go into week 16. So both teams have slim playoff hopes. The 49ers, look, there was that bad weather game on their home field last week. They were really playing. They looked like they were a team that was trying to do what they could to make a playoff push. And the Rams beat them. But I think even traveling to Miami, I think we saw a fire from the 49ers that are getting people back on defense. I think the 49ers offensively, look, Debo doesn't look like the same guy, but I still think overall Garendo's going to be fine. Kittle's in a great spot. I want to hear your thoughts, especially on Juwan Jennings as one and how much he may or may not see Jalen Ramsey.
So I don't know if Ramsey, I should have looked up, but I don't know if he's going to specific matchups or if he's more so just slotting into plays depending on the play call. But he's been staying on the outside since Cotter Kohu came back. Before they had Ramsey mostly playing in the slot, which is a little odd. But Kendall Fuller's tough too. So even if Jalen Ramsey doesn't shadow anyone in particular, I think the Dolphins' pass defense can be challenging. However, I think the basic fact with Kyle Shanahan is as long as his running game is working, he tees up all the other details. Like it's not just that Juwan Jennings is this good, even though he is very good. It's that these looks that he's capitalizing on are dialed up by Shanahan because he's getting the defense in spots where he wants it. And the first step to getting there is the run game. So the Dolphins' run defense has been improved, and I think they'll play tough initially. But I think their challenge is, can they keep that up over the whole course of the game, especially when Guarendo and his 4.33 speed means if you make one mistake, it could be very costly. So, yeah, I think Josh asked in the chat about Tua versus Purdy. I think I'd go Purdy just because I think the only reason the 49ers fell apart last week was because of the weather.
Yes, and Kittle's going to have a game here. Kittle is going to have a game. Other side of the ball, look, Tua's coming off that disaster game, got pressure on them. They didn't use the middle of the field. One place they could have exploited Houston. They didn't do that. 49ers are getting healthier on defense. Jalen Waddle hurt his knee. We don't know his status as of this recording. Jonnu Smith, not the greatest matchup, but they've weaponized him well. What do you see from the Dolphins?
If Waddle's limited, then even though I don't like the matchup and even though I worry about his efficiency, I just can't really bet against Jonnu Smith right now. And garbage time can be to his benefit too. Like he doesn't just need to win, in a high leverage situation. It's like Jonnu's getting featured in all these various circumstances. So it's like whichever way the game goes, I just don't know how they don't involve Jonnu. And Tyreek you start because of who he is. But right. I don't want to start anyone. I want to start from scrimmage guys only for the Dolphins, and it's only Tyreek, Jonnu, Achane.
We will predict this game. Who wins this one?
I think it'll be hard fought, but I think in the second half, at least, there should be some points. I just expect them to be more so for the 49ers. So, like, I don't know, 27-28 to 21-24 or something like that.
Right around where I'm at. I got like 26-20. So yeah, right in the same boat. 49ers probably have a good chance of winning this one. Let's go next. We will go to the 8-6 Buccaneers against the 6-8 Cowboys. So Dallas, yeah, they're missing a lot of pieces on defense. Trevon Diggs is out. They have other injuries in the secondary, but Micah Parsons is still a game wrecker. But Tampa Bay's protected Baker Mayfield very well this year. He's been making second reaction plays. The screen game is designed flawlessly. I don't think Dallas has an answer for Mike Evans. Jalen McMillan, maybe potentially for his third good game in a row. I just don't see Dallas slowing down Tampa. How do you see it, Mario?
I agree. Liam Cohen seems to be doing an incredible job as offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. And I don't know, other than Mike Evans, I don't ever know what to expect specifically from the Buccaneers offense, but just that Cohen will have like a pretty clear plan and he seems to execute it pretty well with different guys from scrimmage. So Irving, White, whatever, McMillan, somebody's doing damage, I think, for the Buccaneers offense. It's just not clear, in my opinion, whether much more than CeeDee Lamb can get going on the Dallas side. So I don't know how urgent the Buccaneers will play.
Like you said, aside from CeeDee Lamb, Rico Dowdle's had games with volume because Dallas has been in the lead or close. If the Bucs get out to a lead, they might game script him out. And if they're trailing, people think, oh, he'll get a ton of screens. Maybe not. The Bucs blitz all day, and blitz pickup may be more important than a running back dumping out for screens. And Jake Ferguson on paper is a great matchup, but they have not been utilizing him well at all. So for fantasy, other than CeeDee Lamb, and obviously you'll get enough volume from Dowdle to at least get something, but I'm not excited about the matchup. What are your thoughts on the Dallas side?
Yeah, I definitely can't discourage. I can't tell anyone they're wrong for being optimistic about Dowdle in this setting. I just think, I think his story will ultimately go down similarly to how Ty Chandler's did, where it's like, yeah, he had a big game, had 3 big games. That's great. That's against 3 really bad defenses. Buccaneers don't have a great defense, but the game script is at least a complication that didn't exist in the other games. And like you said, that alone could be a bit of a setback.
Buccaneers are 4-point favorites on the road. I think they win this one by 7. What do you think, Mario?
I agree. I like Todd Bowles. I like Cohen. I think the Buccaneers really are locked in, and they've got their eyes set on the playoffs with very serious demeanor.
All right, let's go to the 5-9 Saints at the 10-4 Packers. I worry a little bit about a trap game here, Mario, for the Packers. And I didn't even say this about Minnesota. Minnesota's in the same boat because they're playing each other next week. And it's a big divisional game. And to think that some teams, players don't have that in the back of their mind, we see it all the time. Teams have letdown games. And the Saints, look, at 5-9, the Packers probably aren't taking them as serious as they should. The coaches will tell them to, but human nature is not. And then the trap game potential. And then the Saints have a mess at quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Alvin Kamara has an abductor injury. We won't know. It's a Monday night game. We won't know his injury status until much later in the week. All that said, the Saints are playing really hard for Darren Rizzi. Does anybody get going on offense for the Saints? If Kendre Miller plays over Kamara, does he have a game too?
I like Kendre Miller enough as a prospect, but there's a lot. I feel like, anyway, we don't know everything about him. A game like this could clarify just what he's capable of a little bit. But the Saints' problem, in my opinion, is even with this Rizzi factor, it's almost like a little bit the way the Chargers on defense. They play it out of their minds way better than their talent level. But you can only do that for so long. Eventually, you need real, actual talent. And I think the Packers, you're right, they need to watch out for the trap game. But wrong or right, I do have faith that they'll be pretty locked in. I think LaFleur has their attention, and I think LaFleur understands the nature of things well enough that he'll kind of make clear to them, like, you need to think of this as our playoff game. We have to win like 8 playoff games or whatever. It's just the reality, and you can't lose this. And it's true. So I think they'll show. It might be hard fought, especially in the first half, but I think the Packers just have too much ammo.
The other side of the ball, I just think it's another Josh Jacobs game. New Orleans struggles against the run. They can't load the box because of the weapons that Green Bay has. We've seen games where Jordan Love attempts fewer than 20 passes. I think this is one. I think they just run the ball, dominate the game, throw when they need to. Anything on that, Mario?
I think they might need to take some shots in the passing game just in case. Like you said, if the Saints somehow make it close initially, then the Packers might need to strike to make that distance on the scoreboard. And then, yeah, they put the chokehold on. Sorry. What was it?
I'm sorry. No, I thought you were pausing.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think the Packers will look to get into that feeding and, running out the clock mode in the ground game. But a quick strike to Watson, a quick strike to Dobbs is not out of the question, because that's another way to make Rattler that much more uncomfortable, is put some points on the board.
Mario, I'm not betting this game. It's 13.5. I'm guessing the Packers 26-13 should get the Saints to cover, but this game could go 40-7 the same way. So I am not touching it because I could see both scenarios. Who wins? It's 13.5. Who do you take at 13.5 point line on this?
That's leaving the back door way open, but I guess if I had to pick a side, it would be Green Bay, but I'd prefer not to.
Right, exactly. I want to lay off that game. That number is just way too big. There's too many potential outcomes. RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. Did you know you can get a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed to check everything out we have to offer? You get that trial by going to rotowire.com/pod. We want to thank our sponsors, DraftKings, Pick 6, and LIV Golf. And thanks to everyone for listening. Come back next week for another edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.